Operations Manager 2016 uses SQL Server databases to store its configuration information, to keep alerts, performance, data, and other data. So that's why it's very important to have a proper backup and recovery plan for these databases. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some backup and restore basics. In this video, we will take a closer look at backing up the Operations Manager database, restoring the Operations Manager database, and restoring Operations Manager. On TechNet's website, Microsoft has provided a recommended schedule for the backups of the databases that are part of your Operations Manager deployment. If you look at the backups on the left and then the actual backup strategy in the middle and the right of this particular table, as far as the operational database, Microsoft recommends doing a full backup weekly, incremental backup daily. As your data warehouse database, you should do a full backup monthly and incremental backups weekly. Now this is at a very minimum. Now if you want to, you can perform more backups than this, depending upon what your security team and what your disaster recovery team suggests. The reporting server, you should back it up periodically. Anytime you make any kind of additions and changes, deletions, custom reports, you should back it up. As far as the incremental backup is the same as the full backup. Your ACS, your audit collection services, you should do a full backup monthly, incremental backup weekly. The master database, I mentioned this. Anytime you make any kind of configuration changes to any of your databases, you've changed logins, you've added other security changes, you should back up or even created a new or deleted a new database. You should back up the master database. As far as the MSDB database, after the initial installation and configuration of Operations Manager, and anytime you do any kind of scheduling of jobs. And as far as any kind of custom management packs, you should always include management packs as part of your backup strategy. Now, the prepackaged management packs, you can simply download those from the Microsoft's website and then import them back into Operations Manager. But any custom management packs, any unsealed management packs, you should export them to a secure location and then add them as part of your backup strategy. To back up your Operations Manager database, if you look to the far left, that's a screenshot of SQL Management Studio. You would just go into SQL Management Studio, open up your databases, and you'll see Operations Manager, right mouse click Operations Manager, and under Tasks, you're going to select Backup. You'll also have an option to select Restore, but you'll select Backup. That brings up the backup database. It's kind of a wizard. This is where you'll select the database that you're going to perform the backup on, the recovery model, the backup type, whether it's full or incremental. The very first time you perform a backup, you'll only have the option to perform a full backup. Is it just a copy-only backup? A copy-only backup does not clear the archive bit. Um, the backup components, are you backing up the database or any file or file groups that you've created? If this is a backup set, the name and description of the backup set and when the set will expire. And the destination. Now, if you can do a disk backup, it backs up to the default location under program files. You should remove this and then add a network location as the destination for your backup. If you are performing a transaction log database, instead of full backup, you should choose transaction log. The transaction log makes sure that whenever you have a successful backup of the transaction log, it clears the transaction log. That way, and you want to periodically have a backup of your transaction log, you can restore back to a state of known consistency when you back up your transaction logs. And also, you keep the database from just growing and growing and growing, because the transaction logs will just continue to add on to that transaction log until it has a successful backup. So you can just say back up the transaction log. You have the same options, copy only, the backup set, and the destination. Now to the right, you'll actually see the options page under your backup options, backup to the existing media. You can append the backup to the existing media. You can overwrite it. You can check the media set name, backup to a new media set, verify the backup when finished, uh, continue on error, perform checksum. So you have all of these options under the actual options tab. And you have this for both the transaction log and for the full incremental backups. If you've had a successful backup and you have the need to do a restore, you can open up SQL Management Studio, go down to the Operations Manager database or even the Data Warehouse database. I'm just using the Operations database right now. The Operations Manager database, right mouse click it, click Task, and you're going to perform a restore. And you'll have an option, are you going to restore the database, restore the file or file group, or restore page? Once you select your options, and I've selected the database option, you'll see the database, the Operations Manager database, and then the destination. Um, this is the where you're going to restore it to. And typically you would restore it to the same location unless you happen to have lost that particular server or hardware altogether and you just restore it to a different location. And then you can select your full backup along with the transaction log. Actually select it automatically. Uh, the full backup, any incremental backups, along with the last transaction log backup. Now this screen shows the Options tab on a restore. You can overwrite the existing database with a replace, preserve the replication settings, restrict access to the restored database. Basically, you're just not allowing anyone in the database until you completely finish with the actual restore. The tail log backups, you can take a tail log backup before the restore, and then you can actually add that. That's just basically any kind of changes will be appended after the backup has completed. And you also have the option to close any existing connections to the destination database, and that's a good option also. And then you can actually click OK to perform your backup or to perform your restore. Now, whenever you are restoring Operations Manager, after you've successfully restored your Operations Manager databases, meaning your data warehouse database also, you can restore the installation of Operations Manager if you happen to have lost Operations Manager. You can run setup using any of the switches. I've actually added what you see here on the screen, the URL to a TechNet article that lists all of the setup parameters that you can use, the switches that you can use for setup during the restore process. If the database is restored successfully, then all the management packs are restored. But if there's a difference between the versions, then you can just re-import the management pack. Restore unsealed management packs from the backup and then import those also. This concludes our video on backup and restore basics. Our next video, we'll look at integrating Operations Manager with other System Center products.